afternoon. I'm Barbara Hernandez, Communications Director for Pinellas County Government. Thank you for joining us. Today we will be providing an update on the Hurricane Milton response efforts. You will be hearing from Kathy Perkins, Emergency Management Director, as well as Sheriff Bob Gualtieri. First, I'd like to provide a couple of updates about our ongoing response to the storm. So, as of this morning, Pinellas County has lifted the mandatory evacuation orders for zones A, B, C, and all mobile homes. You may have also heard that most bridge access to Pinellas County is now open. There is some final work going on the Courtney Campbell Bridge. And the barrier islands, access has been restored to them as well. There are still many hazards on the road, so we are encouraging residents and motorists to please, first, if you don't have to leave your home, stay put. If you absolutely must, be very careful. There are a lot of road hazards out there, and our crews and emergency responders are working really hard to get those removed and make sure that you have a safe path to travel. But until then, please be mindful and respectful of the crews. Treat any intersections that you arrive at that are without power, treat them as a four-way stop sign, and just be safe out there. Let's go to Kathy now.
Good morning. It's been exactly 2 weeks since Hurricane Helene made landfall on Florida's Gulf Coast, and only about 4 hours since Hurricane Milton left our area. And again, our community is waking up to gauge just how hard we were hit by yet another hurricane. Milton made landfall last night as a Category 3 storm around Siesta Key. The exact timing and location of that landfall meant that Tampa Bay was spared in the final hours from the predicted catastrophic storm surge, but that doesn't mean that we didn't get impacted at all. And we know that neighbors to our south, unfortunately, did have that much higher storm surge. Some parts of our county got as much as 18 inches of rain in a very short period of time, combined with wind gusts over 100 miles per hour. We saw a lot of our inland communities that flooded during Tropical Storm Debbie earlier this year also flooded again. With waterways swollen from all the extra rain, we may continue to see some flooding in the next few days. And I really want to express my gratitude to our community for taking the evacuation orders seriously. We had over 11,000 people in shelters last night, and I think we're down to 7,000 people are already making their way back home. And we still had 100 people that have been in shelters since Hurricane Helene. So, just so grateful to those that got out of harm's way so we didn't have to perform a lot of water rescues last night. And just so thankful to all of the personnel that have been working in the shelters and supporting all of the operations that have been ongoing. So we didn't have massive numbers of overnight 911 calls, desperate like we had before during Helene, but I can tell you, there were a lot of impacts in our community. So as it stands today, our county is about 75% without power. Only 3 out of our 14 hospitals are open to receive patients at this time. St. Pete had their wastewater went down last night and their water systems went down last night, but they have been able to restore both of those. Water pressure is still low and they're under a boil water order at this time. Our big concern, and a lot of the work that was done over the night, is the 5 hospitals located down in St. Petersburg, because without water that affected their cooling systems, it affected so many of their hospital systems, and we were looking at potentially having to evacuate up to about 1,000 patients out of those 5 facilities. But the work that St. Pete has done to identify where those major leaks occurred and get that fixed has been really phenomenal, and being able to get the wastewater services back on is just tremendous and helping us to keep those facilities in place. They've been stabilized at this time, but we will be continuing to request additional resources to support for boosting their pressure and looking at reverse osmosis so they can do many of the things that they need to do within their facilities. Right now, any trauma patients have to be transported out of county, so I cannot plead with you enough, right? So we have a lot of traffic lights out. Everything must be kept treated as a 4-way stop. We do not want to have any trauma incidents because this will take longer to get people to care. Last night, Largo Hospital did have to evacuate due to flooding, which impacted their electrical system. So that's another hospital that we had offline. And that was due to flooding, not due to anything that was happening down in St. Petersburg area. As of today, we are calling down our 27 nursing homes and 38 assisted living facilities that are in the St. Petersburg area to make sure that their systems are back up and running and they're doing well. We do know that we have between 10 to 15 dialysis and outpatient surgical centers that have been affected. We have over 3,000 dialysis patients in our community, some of them receiving dialysis as many 3 times a week. So we'll be working with our partners to get the dialysis systems up and supplement that and look at what that might look like for those patients. We do have active water rescue missions going on in Clearwater and Largo. We have search and rescue operations on the barrier islands, and on Treasure Island and Madeira Beach, we do know that we had some structural damages. They believe that they may have been impacted by a tornado. Search and rescue is out there. We don't know of any injuries out there as of yet. As you all probably saw on the news, the roof of the Trop was blown off. Again, no known injuries of anybody in that facility at that time. We do have widespread down power lines and trees down, so please be careful if you're traversing the area. All of the bridges back into Pinellas County are open with the exception of the westbound lanes of the Courtney Campbell. And we currently still have about 7,000 people in shelters. So, while you no longer have to shelter in place, now that the storm has passed us, there's still a lot of hazards out there. So our message to you this morning is really simple. We need you to stay home. Don't go out and about unless you really have to. Please stay away from floodwaters or down power lines. We have many first responders, public works, and utilities crews have been working nonstop for more than 2 weeks now. They're tired, and before they got up before dawn to get to work again today. So they've got a lot of work ahead of them, cleaning drains, helping people in flooded areas, and assessing the damages and how they changed from what we saw from Helene to the last storm. The last thing we need to have is a lot of people just driving around through dangerous areas, getting stranded in flooded streets, and again, obeying the 4-way stops where the traffic lights are out. We do not want people getting injured at all. We'll be communicating throughout the day as conditions around the county, and we continue to assess what's happening out there and how we were impacted. And we've had 3 storms already this season, so we are all praying that this one is the last one. But we really hope that over the next few days and few weeks and few months, we can really focus on the long process of rebuilding.
Thank you, Kathy. Let's go to the sheriff.
So while we escaped the worst of the storm surge, we certainly didn't escape the worst of the wind and the rain last night. We were prepared. We had 8 high water rescue teams staged throughout the county with about 100 law enforcement officers from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, several sheriff's offices from North Florida that came as a mutual aid request, and FWC. As it turned out, we needed them. It got pretty treacherous during the middle of the night. We were getting a lot of rescue calls. We tried to put those teams out there, but it was so bad we had to pull them off. I went out there myself at one point, and the weather conditions were so bad that you couldn't drive around. The wind, the rain, down power poles, down street lights, hot wires that were down in the street. And so it was a really bad situation out there, so we pulled everybody off. We were able to go back to all of those this morning and check on those people, and we didn't have anybody that was seriously hurt or injured. We did have, again, some rescues from those, but there was nothing significant. The most significant thing that we did have was a very, very major water rescue this morning, and that was at the Standard Apartment Complex at 2690 Drew Street in Clearwater. So I get up there this morning early, along with Chief Gandy from the Clearwater Police Department. And these are some photos you'll see from the operation in the last couple of hours. And the water in that complex was throughout the entire complex from south to north, east to west. And some of the water was as high as the second floor balcony of some of those apartments in there. And many of the cars were covered in water. And we had been told that there are about 90% occupancy of that complex, and they have about 2,000 residents in that complex. So along with the Clearwater Police Department, Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, and these rescue teams that we had from FWC and the other sheriff's offices, we rescued about 430 people using high water vehicles and boats over the last couple hours this morning. I was sure, and I'm glad I was wrong, that we were going to see some casualties out of that, because it was just mind-boggling when you looked at it and saw the water so high. What we found out, thankfully, is a lot of the people that were in those first floor apartments moved to their neighbors' apartments on the second floor, and I think that's why we didn't have any casualties. So a lot of credit to our teams that were out there today, and they definitely saved lives in that apartment complex. It's probably the most significant water rescue in one of that magnitude that I've seen here in Pinellas County ever. So it's again, thankful that nobody died in that. I believe that complex is going to have to be shut down. I don't think it's inhabitable, but you see the pictures that are up here behind me. So other than that, we have probably 50 intersections throughout the county that do not have traffic signals. I just ask everybody to be very careful as you're driving. Remember, treat those intersections as four-way stops. We do have deputies that are directing traffic at some of those intersections, the major ones, and the officers from some of the police departments throughout the county are doing the same thing. And I'm out there driving around here just before we came in to do this press conference, is people are blowing through those intersections, and you got to be careful. And I see them do it. You got to treat them as four-way stops. So we're trying everything possible to get those traffic lights back up. Don't have a timetable for that, but we'll continue to manually, and that means cops in the intersections, controlling those intersections until we get the traffic lights back up. The road conditions out there are what they are. There's a lot of debris out there. They are passable, and that's why we opened up the roads. But everybody, please be careful. And I really want to, again, thank the residents of the Barrier Islands for listening to us this time, because I went out there last night before the storm came in, and as they would say, it's a ghost town out there, and that's exactly what we wanted to see. So people listened, and on the heels of the last storm, they evacuated out of there. So it was a good thing, and I think that's also one of the reasons why we didn't have some more problems out there. So again, people listened, and we're very appreciative of that. We can take some questions if you have them.
I'm going to wrap up real quickly with a few other updates. So the first one is our regional water provider, Tampa Bay Water, has reported multiple ongoing power outages that are limiting their water pumping capabilities to the region. So customers are encouraged to conserve water as much as possible. Our Pinellas County Utilities Department reports over 140 pump stations without power. Crews obviously are working around the clock to restore those back to service. If your house was damaged, please make sure you document that damage. There are a lot of resources at disaster.pinellas.gov for anybody who needs to file claims in the near future. And then lastly, we've been getting a lot of calls and questions about donations. We do appreciate everybody's interest in being part of the solution and helping our community recover from Hurricane Milton. The most helpful way for people to support us, our community, is to make a donation to a nonprofit organization that is vetted, that is legitimate, such as Salvation Army or Red Cross. You can find a list of those online. We ask that you please not bring materials or donations straight to different parts of our community. We ask that you coordinate with us directly at the Emergency Operations Center. You can call the County Information Center at 727-464-4333. And those who are interested in volunteering can do so by visiting volunteerflorida.org. We're going to go ahead and take questions from media in the room, and then we're going to go to media joining us via Zoom. If you are joining us via Zoom, please raise your hand, and we will unmute you at the appropriate time. Stephanie.
Quickly for you, could you confirm which 3 hospitals are open in the county, and then I have a question for the sheriff?
Okay. Do you know what the hospitals?
It's the ones in the north. So Morton Plant, Meese Countryside, and I think is it Advent North. I'll have to get that for you. Yeah.
We'll confirm that for you, Stephanie.
Okay, thank you. And then, Sheriff, if you could just talk about any idea of what might have contributed to that flooding in that particular complex? Was it all rain? Was there a nearby body of water spilling in?
Yeah, so it was all rain caused because there's no surge, but there's a creek behind there that goes up and runs out into Tampa Bay, and the creek is what overflowed up there and caused that flooding. So it was the backup from that.
And what is the plan as far as, you said that it is uninhabitable, those folks can't live there. So
Right.
what is the plan for those people? What is the county doing to help them out?
Well, they can go to shelters, or they can make other arrangements. So, I mean, as far as what the county is doing, there's shelters available to them. And we had buses up there, and anybody that wanted to go to shelters, we allowed them to go to shelters or took them to shelters. A lot of them did not, so I don't know what a lot of them were going to do. They made their own arrangements.
Sheriff, I've had a lot of calls from people wondering, they're out of town, they've evacuated. At what point should they come back? Should they head back now, maybe wait a couple days?
Well, one of the things I would encourage them to do is probably check to see if their power's on. And that's a choice, but that's probably a big deal in their decision to come back. As far as coming back and be able to navigate the roads, they can come back, but again, they need to be very, very careful. And we'd rather that it be a little staggered as far as people coming back, because crews are out there, there's a lot of debris to clean up. We still do have some poles down in certain places, and those repairs are ongoing. So, people can come back, but take it easy.
Are you guys planning on continuing to have any sort of extra patrols, even though the evacuation orders have now been lifted?
Well, we'll go back to, out there in the barrier islands now, we got to look at it as far as the power is concerned. After the last storm, we had from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., we had a contingent of about 80 deputies a night out there in anti-looting patrol, and it was working. And we were making a lot of arrests, and there's a lot of people out there doing bad things they shouldn't have been doing. So we're going to go back to that for a period of time, especially given the condition of the barrier islands. Now, those barrier islands, I was out there this morning, it really doesn't look any different today than it did a couple of days ago, but it looks horrific. To make no mistake, is that the last storm tore up the Gulf beaches here in Pinellas County. So we still have to go back to that in the aftermath. There's a tremendous amount of debris still out there. And so we're really back to that situation. So we'll do everything to make sure that those residents' homes and the businesses in the barrier islands continue to be protected. But that's because of the last storm, not because of this.
I'm not sure if this is maybe a question for you, Sheriff, but I just want to ask, when it comes to the wastewater treatment plant in St. Petersburg, you know that they had shut it down during Hurricane Helene, and they also shut it down this time. But can you give residents and people an exact description of how much water was at risk, which means you all had to shut it down? Because we know last time they said that it was from the surge, but if we didn't have another surge this time, how much water was over there to where you all had to make a call that it had to be shut down and why?
So I think you're talking about the City of St. Petersburg utility activities. You're going to have to connect with them on that. I can get you a contact. Yep, absolutely.
So when the debris removal from Helene will kind of resume, as you're also juggling now additional Milton debris?
So that is actually resuming as crews are going out and opening and clearing roads back up. Obviously, the big operation that we had going on prior to the storm, that will need to be resumed at a future date. Right now, the priority is making sure that the roads are clear and that proper damage assessments are conducted to make sure we understand the breadth of what Milton did to our community. So that will need to come first. But obviously, debris management continues to be a priority, and we're factoring that into our plans.
Were there any reports of any structure fires or things from either blown transformers or down power lines or electrical cars even?
I'm not aware of any, but I can follow up on that. Any other questions in the room? All right, let's go to Zoom.
We have a question online from Jack Evans with Tampa Bay Times.
Go ahead, Jack.
Hey, can you guys hear me? I've got
Yes.
a little connection.
I can hear you, Jack.
Okay. On the topic of debris, just curious, I know that was a big concern going into this storm and all the debris out there could become airborne with the high winds that we were expecting to experience. What did we wind up seeing in terms of debris? I'm over here in Tampa right now, and I know a lot of the piles in the neighborhood I'm in pretty much stayed put. Is that the case in Pinellas? And what are you guys seeing so far?
So I can tell you what we're receiving from our public works crews out there. Obviously, they had to delay going out this morning because the storm impacts were here way into the morning. But we did have some crews go out as early as I think it was 4 or 5 in the morning to start conducting the assessment. We are not hearing a lot of different news relating to the debris. I think it's pretty much a similar state to what we had before, but obviously with the wind activity that you referenced, there are things obviously that moved and that ended up somewhere else. But like I said, right now the priority is on clearing the roads. As they're doing that, Jack, they are taking note of the debris situation and what they're seeing out there. This will not be the first or last time they go out on those roads. So this is going to be factored into the debris removal plans that will be put into place as soon as the initial damage assessments and road clearing is completed. Any other questions?
No other questions online.
All right. Thanks, everybody.